sort of vision was that individual students would, and academics and maybe career researchers would sign up and use the technology. But in the early days, we also thought that we would be licensing Scholarcy to organisations, so maybe to other software companies, and particularly to research discovery services. And the idea was that they would plug the API in and that they could generate short synopses for, large collections of articles and display those on their website. Selling licenses into organisations was tricky. It was difficult to find the right person that would have accountability for that. And there was still at the time, back in 2019, some kind of nervousness around using this technology. And so to cut a long story short, we just decided that it wasn't going to be a viable business model. And we really started sort of honing our focus on the academic space, on students, academics and researchers. The majority of our users are in 18 to 34 age range. They really range from undergrad right through to masters, PhD, and then early career researchers. So it's a real mix. And the tool kind of adapts to those different types of students. So it can be useful for a new undergrad getting to grips with longer texts or complex texts and take some of that anxiety away. But for more advanced students, for PhD students, it can really help in, going back to the point about Phil, in really just reducing the cognitive load and figuring out more easily which papers are going to be most useful to your work and your research. So it's kind of got a range of applications, and we see that reflected really in the audience. So neurodiverse students told us that, having a visual view of the summary flashcards and being able to see the connections between those flashcards, whether that's key concept, key findings, would be useful. So one thing that the team's actually working on today is a kind of visualization of those flashcards. So a form of mind map, I guess you could say. And another one quite recently was that people wanted to be able to discover more papers and pull them into Scholarcy Library without leaving the application, have that kind of discovery experience within Scholarcy. And so we integrated with OpenAlex, which is the biggest open access platform for research papers. And you can now, put a keyword term into Scholarcy and it'll return search results from OpenAlex, and you can then just pull those straight into your library in the form of summary flashcards.
So all of my students were really impressed by the fact that it brings up the contributions, it brings up key facts, it increases the accessibility to academic texts, which are normally quite daunting. And a lot of my students find a research paper so difficult because it's written in such a specific way where it should only be interpreted and mean one thing. But if you've been doing research for 15 years, of course, it does make sense. If you're a 19-year-old, you're in your second year of uni, you've not been reading text like that for very long, so it's quite a daunting approach, and there are all these really 5-syllable words to try and digest. And where are the important parts of the paper? And it just brings them to the forefront so they can go, cool, this is actually what it's talking about, the contributions to science that they can present using the different flashcard sections. It's so much more accessible for a student that potentially doesn't even want to do reading. They might go to do an art course where they want everything to be practical, and now they're being made to write essays and explain every single brushstroke they've made and to back it up, and they think, this isn't for me, I want to go and do the practical part of it. So it bridges the gap between the passion and the you have to do this parts of the course. I had a lot of students really enjoy the fact that you can export it out to Word, for example. So a lot of the screen readers that they got worked better on a Word document because of the way that the text is then accessible. changing, because there are better screen readers that can work on a website more effectively. But there were a lot of people that went, oh, you can export over to a PowerPoint, and now it's something that my brain over the course of my education has been considered. PowerPoint, yeah, this is where the information is. Oh, boring web page, no, not going to get anything from that. So it was really varied based off of what sort of course they were doing, what sort of stage of their academic journey they were in, whether they were an undergrad or a PhD student. There was no two students the same, which was quite exciting for the job, because you never really knew what to expect with it.
At the moment, there's a range of different file formats that you can import into Scholarcy. So it could be a Word document, PDF, the link to an open access article, plain text doesn't really matter what the source is. And that's always going to generate this consistent Scholarcy flashcard. And on the output side, you can export to a range of file formats. That could be Excel, could be Word, PowerPoint. And again, that makes it more adaptable to other services. So if, for example, I export my flashcards to Markdown, I can then import those results into something like Roam or Obsidian, those kind of second brain tools, and that can give me a nice knowledge network. So, you know, the information from Scholarcy I export, and then it's represented nicely in another application. We have integrated directly with some other applications, Zotero being the main one. So people who have a Zotero account can now pull papers directly in from their library into Scholarcy, and again generate the flashcard.